Hey everyone, in today's exciting episode we are building this white oak Danish cord bench. This was an extremely fun build and I'm super excited to show you all, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. The standard process for me is to breaking things down into bite-sized pieces. This makes everything a lot more manageable, and first we're starting off with breaking down the pieces for the legs. I'm new to the CNC world, so I ended up using the CNC to cut out the leg pieces. You can definitely cut this out with the table saw, but since I have a CNC in my shop, I wanted to test this out. And while the legs are cutting out, I ended up cutting the stretchers for the bench. And with the miscalculation of material, I ended up putting a unique joint at the bottom stretcher. This joint is basically just two half flaps with a dowel right down the middle. This gives me the length I need, but also gives added security and a unique feature on this bench, which I like. And here I'm drilling out the hole for the double joinery. I've clamped down the side pieces so it's nice and tight and just drilling through the piece. Now that I'm satisfied with the joint, it's time to glue it up and get this joint secured. While that's gluing up, I'm marking out all the tenons that I'll be doing, and I'll be using my mortising jig for this. I'll link the video in this video just to see if you're interested in something like this. A jig that mimics the domino, which is surprisingly fairly good for its intended use. And with all the dominoes rolled over, it's time to round off the edges. I really like that pillowed edge and soft round over. It gives it that nice mid-century modern look, which I really like. Now with something that looks more unique, there's always a little bit more sanding involved. So I start off with my typical sander, but then I use a soft pad on my 5-inch sander to get those nice curves nice and smooth. And once they're smooth, it's time to glue up these pieces. It's always good to double check your orientation of your legs and the bottom stretcher piece, just to make sure that your dominoes are in the right spot and everything is going according to plan. And a little bit more sanding once the glue is dry. And I also decided to glue this up in parts because gluing it up all together would be extremely stressful, and I find it much easier doing it this way. Once it's glued up, it's time to do the final sand and scrape and prep for the piece before finish. Once I was done sanding that, I ended up cutting out the seat for the bench. It was just a simple two-piece glue up with rounded edges on the ends. Just a final double take of sanding before I end up putting finish. Once I'm happy with the sanding, I ended up using figure 8 screws to set my seat. I wanted to do this before putting finish on so that I know the exact locations once it's all set and done. I find figure 8 clips or Z clips extremely easy, which is what I always gravitate towards. And to set the seat, I ended up using playing cards for this bench. It gives me equal spacing, so I can set my screws exactly where they should be. And my favorite part is the finish. I'm using Osmo Poly X gloss for this bench. Here I'm doing 2 coats of Osmo Poly X and a quick sand in between each coat. Once the final coat is nice and dry and ready to go, it's time to start the process for the papercord. I won't go into major detail on the aspects of papercord because I hope to get out a video soon on my process. And hopefully that video can help one of you guys if you ever decide to use papercord in one of your projects. In this bench, I am marking out the fronts and backs and sides. The front and back will be 1 inch spacing, where the sides will be 1/2 inch spacing in between. Pre-drilling some holes for the L nails. One thing to note is just make sure you get extra L nails. They're fairly cheap and it's always good to have extra on hand. There's lots of steps involved in weaving this papercord. In the next video, I will do a deep dive on weaving the papercord and the processes that I've learned on this project. Now, I'm definitely not an expert at weaving Danish papercord, but I do know a few tips and tricks, and hopefully that will help you weave your own bench. So for now, just enjoy some papercord process. And there it is, a Danish cord mid-century modern white oak bench. I really like the inset bench design, and the papercord adds such a nice medium to this bench. This definitely was one of my funnest builds on here, and I'm hoping to add more Danish cord into my projects. So if you enjoy this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.